So, Kate, who are we canceling today?
We are canceling traditional political campaigns.
Oh, you mean the ones that Democrats have ran that have gotten us into this hellhole?
Something like that, yeah.
What can we do differently?
You'll have to listen and see. Hey everyone, I'm Caitlin Burns.
And I'm Christine Grimaldi.
And you're listening to Cancel Me Daddy,
the show where we take a closer look at all the panic around cancel culture.
with thoughtful analysis.
And verbal shitposting.
Christine, it's good to see you.
I know. Well, we just saw each other in
true,
person. It's good to see you again, but I miss seeing you in person.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a funny recording schedule. We actually recorded the interview for this episode the day after we talked with Malcolm Kenyatta, and we've already filmed our next episode. So it's interesting timing.
Mm-hmm. We have so much content for you all.
It's true. Oh God, are we content creators? Is that what we are?
No.
Okay.
No. We're so much more. Kate and I hadn't seen each other in person in at least 2 years, if not longer.
Yes. And we spent a couple of days together in New York. We recorded an in-person interview in Multitude Productions in-person studio. And we're very excited about that. So keep an eye out for that 2 weeks from now.
It's going to be fun to watch.
But today, actually, we have a fantastic interview with, I think, one of the hottest candidates, which I think is probably literally true, but I meant in like the political momentum sense.
Metaphorically.
Out there this year, everybody's seemingly blue sky favorite, Kat Abughazaleh, who is a former Media Matters researcher and influencer who is running for Congress in the Chicago area. The Illinois 9th, I think, is her district.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, soon to be former Representative Jan Schakowsky's district.
Yes.
And Representative Schakowsky has had a really strong progressive background in Congress, but she's also represented that same district for, I don't know, Kate, like how many years, decades?
Yeah, we get into that a little bit in the interview.
So I think Kat really talks about not just the substance, but really not to denigrate style, but what has to be done differently, what approach needs to be taken, what framework needs to be taken with that substance in order to reach voters.
And, we didn't mention this in the actual interview, but one thing that was really interesting to me is that Abughazaleh declared her run for the seat before Schakowsky decided to retire. And it wasn't until after it was clear that Kat was mounting a serious campaign that Schakowsky decided to retire from Congress kind of suddenly, too. It took a lot of people by surprise. So there's now an open primary there. I think there's several candidates in the race, but it's interesting that her early momentum seemingly scared somebody even as established as Jan Schakowsky.
Well, maybe there's a lesson there, too, because when AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, first ran for Congress and she primaried Joe Crowley, who was a very high-ranking Democrat, a big Nancy Pelosi ally, and she beat him in the primary. And I think for a long time that Democrats have not taken the left or the progressive left or what do they call the five in Congress? I forget, they have a nickname.
The Squad?
Yeah, the Squad.
Is it the Squad?
Yeah. They either don't take the Squad seriously or they just kind of dismiss it outright. But there really is a hunger for change in the Democratic Party and in Congress. And I think that maybe Jan Schakowsky understood that these not threats, but like threats to the establishment are not to be taken lightly anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Kat's campaign has been compared to AOC. You mentioned her earlier, and I think that is both true and untrue. They're obviously different people. I think Kat has a little bit better understanding of how to specifically combat the far right because that's her background. Like that's what she did in journalism. But at the same time, the two of them are both masters of social media and they're both building a tremendously grassroots campaign, although they're going to end up looking very differently for reasons we'll get into in the interview. And it was really fun speaking with her. So let's get into the interview. Joining us now is Kat Abughazaleh, who is running for the 9th Illinois U.S. House District. And I think one of the candidates running for office that I'm most excited to see. And Kat, welcome to Cancel Me Daddy.
Thanks for having me.
You and I have known each other, at least online, for a long time. I think this is our first time actually speaking with each other.
It's very exciting.
But I wanted to ask, what was your process of going from journalist and social media presence to deciding to run for office?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, I was a researcher and journalist. I worked at Media Matters, Mother Jones, Teo News, and in 2023, while at Media Matters, I started making videos on my personal accounts explaining what was going on in right-wing media. And some of it were insane right-wing rabbit holes. Some of it was, really insidious stuff I'd see on Fox News. And the one thing that I took away from my work was that Democrats don't know how to deal with these people. And people in our line of work have been warning them for years and years and years and begging them to listen, and they didn't. And so when Trump won, I was like, well, they've got to do something, right? This is going to be bad. And then after the inauguration, I was like, okay, way too many of them were at the inauguration, but they've got to do something. And then they didn't. And I can't remember which straw broke my back, but sometime in early February, I just wrote in my planner, well, I'm going to run for Congress. And I'm not rich. I don't have, some established political connections. I mean, I do, I worked in political media, reporting on politics. So I do have the advantage of talking, especially to some of my progressive friends, to get some tips. I met my campaign manager through a mutual friend. But I was like, I have this big platform. First off, I want to be in Congress because I want to effectively fight the right. And I know how to do that. And I have been doing it. And I have a track record of that, which we don't see from a lot of candidates. But also I have this big platform. So while I do that, I can kind of demystify this process because it's complicated and weird and not accessible to a lot of people unless they're already rich and well-connected, and create a model for kind of a new type of campaign. We're taking the stuff that works, like ground game and things like that, and trying to enhance them where we can, and then trying some new stuff. So we're spending a lot of our money on mutual aid and direct action because I think showing what you're about instead of telling even before the election is a great way of going about things, especially when people are so disappointed in our political processes.
It feels easier almost to be angry at Democrats, at least for me right now. I read all of the Hunger Games books, so it's like, Katniss, I know who the enemy is, but also Democrats really let us down. And I don't know how we change that. So can you talk a little bit about that messaging that you're putting out there?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. We're already mad at Trump and ICE and Stephen Miller and all of these ghouls, but the people that are supposed to be the opposition aren't putting up opposition. And so it's one of those things where you're already mad because that's the baseline, but you're disappointed and angry with the people who are supposed to be better because they also know better. And what they really should be doing right now, we've seen this in every authoritarian movement, is fighting. The only way to fight fascism is loudly, proudly, and every single day. Anyone who's been through a middle school history class knows that appeasement doesn't work. We saw this with Colombia, where they caved to Trump's demands, and he still is screwing them over. And it's bending the knee and hoping that Trump hurts as many people by 2026 that they'll vote for you is not only morally abhorrent because you're counting on people getting hurt, even if they're not your voters. Mm-hmm. That's disgusting. But also that allows him to consolidate power. And when you see grounded fascists, they take it for their own and they say that it's been theirs the whole time. And we can't let that happen.
So initially, when you jumped into the race, it was ostensibly to oppose Jan Schakowsky, who's a longtime member of Congress, somebody who I remember reporting on when I was on Capitol Hill because she was I believe she was head of the pro-choice caucus, at least at the time.
She also had to go head-to-head against Marsha Blackburn for the fetal tissue panel that I had the privilege of covering
not the fetal
every
tissue.
single day for a year. So I was very familiar with Media Matters coverage at the time, too.
My longtime followers will remember the Bored Kate meme, and that was literally in a fetal tissue hearing. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, like, what made you want to initially challenge her? And she's since dropped out of the race. And so that's the first question I want you to answer for me. And the second one is, since she's dropped out of the race, you've encouraged others to jump into the race as well. Can you talk through your thinking in making both of those decisions?
Yeah, I was really clear when I first launched that this isn't some vendetta against Jan Schakowsky. I mean, she has been one of the most progressive members of Congress. She stood against the Iraq War as a member of Congress when it was happening, which not a lot of people did. And it wasn't, popular in the fury of, 2001 to 2007 of, growing up as an Arab kid in Texas. That's like, we were all in on it, because that's what you do. And my grandmother, who was a straight up Texas GOP operative, hated Jan Schakowsky, which is an endorsement of her character, frankly, of her character, not my grandmother's. So like when I ran, it wasn't because I, hate Jan Schakowsky or think that, she's like the worst person in the world. It's because I think, once again, we need people in Congress who are both technologically not just literate, but like adept, like natives. And we need people in Congress that understand their right. And we don't have a lot of that, especially in the Democratic Party. And also because I think that we need to redefine how we look at primaries. This district has only been represented basically by two people since 1948. There were 2 years where Sidney Yates had run for Senate, that someone took over his position. But besides that, it's been two people. And there hasn't been a competitive primary in this district since Jan Schakowsky first won in 1998, which was 5 months before I was born. And I don't think that's necessarily good. Even when people are doing their jobs, I think that primaries should be competitive. I think running for office should be more accessible, because it makes everyone bring their A game. They have to continually prove that they're the best candidate. Like, just because you win once does not mean you're entitled to it. And that's not what I'm saying about Jan Schakowsky, but this is where I planned to live for the foreseeable future. Like, Ben and I moved to Chicago on pretty short notice when the Onion deal went through, and we looked at neighborhoods we liked. And I mean, anyone that's been in Rogers Park or Edgewater, like, it's a lovely place to live, and that's where we built a community. And so I wanted to run in this district for that reason. And I think if we just look at primaries rather as like an affront to the party or criticism of the party as trying to make it better, this is supposed to be the party of the New Deal and the Civil Rights Act, but instead it's changed a lot. If we re-evaluate how we look at competition and at primaries, I think we'd have a much healthier political system. And that's why I've been encouraging, even before Schakowsky dropped out, if people want help with the FEC paperwork to run against me, I am happy to help them navigate that, because it's a pain in the ass. And I've had two people that want to take me up on it. They haven't been into the office yet to work that out. But like, if you truly think you're the best candidate, you shouldn't have any problem with competition. And when I was first setting up campaign infrastructure, there would be people where there are only so many firms and people in this space. And I'd say there was an incumbent. I don't know if she's running again or not. And they would just straight up hang up the phone. And of course, that changed when we raised $200,000 with just grassroots donations in 24 hours. But they'd be like, wait, just 1 second. Sorry. Our call must have dropped. But it's really unhealthy how we look at primaries, because there's supposed to be a way to prove who the best candidate is. And it's the way that some people have taken it as like a personal insult concerns me.
Yeah. I mean, I want to ask you about so much more, but I did want to sort of express my admiration for you taking this step, because my own district is represented by Representative Richie Neal of Massachusetts, and he's held this seat since 1988 when I was 6 years old. And this is the district I grew up in. I, of course, moved away, started a family, transition, and then moved to DC, and then back now. But even I was thinking in those doldrums of February, especially as Democrats were going, we lost because of trans people, I was like, maybe old Richie needs a primary challenge. And I wimped out. So the fact that you went through with it and said, I'm going to try this.
It's one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done, one of the most rewarding things I've ever done.
Yeah.
But it is exhausting. A candidate salary can only be half of your income over your average income over the last 5 years. And
Wow.
5 years ago, I was making $0 because I was finishing college.
Right.
So my candidate salary is like $25,000. And I was like, this year I had planned to shop around a podcast and a show and like had been doing that as like soon as late January. And so, yeah, it's definitely something that you have to commit yourself to. It's very rewarding, but everyone has their own ways they want to fight and strengths and weaknesses and backgrounds. And I think that my experience could be useful in Congress. I want to get in, get some fascists out, do some good, and leave it to the next generation.
I think they'll leave it to the next generation is like a really prescient point because, as you said, so many members of Congress have been there for so long. And it's also, as longtime congressional reporters, like it's the way the institution is run in a lot of ways, because you don't get a committee chairmanship or like even like ranking member or something if you haven't been there for like quite some time, unless like you come in and like you are like, oof. Sorry, I'm Italian, so I'm like talking with my hands. Realize people can't see the oof. So can you talk about like how you might want to change the environment in Congress? Like, I'm not even like talking like term limits and stuff. I'm just talking about like getting in there, doing what you have to do, and then turning it over to the next generation. Like you said, like, can that be some sort of sea change that we see in Washington?
Yeah, I mean, I hear arguments with term limits and age limits, and I see the pros and cons of both. Like term limits that could put you in a predicament of, corruption and also like tons of turnover. At the same time, I don't think every member of Congress needs to be there for, decades and decades, especially because what I've learned from campaigning is I'm like, how do people do this for so long? And what I've learned is like, after a while, they just stop doing it well. Like empathy is a muscle that you have to flex, and on such a wide scale, especially because the House has never been expanded, it's a lot. And I really enjoy doing this. I love the people I've been talking to, but like you are asking for this job and you should be doing it right. What I'm kind of trying to do is lead by example. And I think that one of the issues with Congress is not even necessarily about the age, like the gerontocracy stuff. It's that a lot of members of Congress, it's kind of homogenous. I mean, half of Congress have a net worth of over $1 million. Half of Americans aren't in the same boat. Half of Americans can't afford $1,000 emergency expense. Most members of Congress didn't grow up with school shooting drills. They might not even have kids that grew up with school shooting drills. They haven't had to worry about out-of-pocket expenses. They probably have owned their home for a long time. And these are things that, like, to give them the benefit of the doubt, a lot of them probably care about and like understand in theory. But I've had people like Ben and I, for instance, I worked from home. So we have an apartment. We had to get a furnished place because once again, we moved on super short notice. And we each pay $2,000 in rent, which is the lowest my rent has ever been. It's as someone that's just rented in big cities. And I've had some older people that are like, that's so much. And it's like, not in this housing environment, especially to get a place on short notice that's furnished, that's by public transit, and that's like, habitable. And a lot of us don't have the luxury to shop around or to, someone was like, why don't you just buy a place? And it's like, I can't do that. And so it's this thing where it's like you're living through experiences. And if you don't understand, when you have like congressional health insurance, for instance, I use GoodRx. I actually just got insurance today because Ben finally had his enrollment period, so I could enroll, which is awesome. But like I've been using GoodRx as my insurance essentially because I didn't have a qualifying event. And so if I go to Walgreens, my narcolepsy medication costs almost $500, even with GoodRx. If I go to, a different pharmacy down the street, it's $30. And like, you don't have to worry about those when you're on one of the best health insurance plans in the country. And so I think there's stuff that kids in high school right now are going through that I have zero idea about, that like I can't even fathom. And I can't properly legislate on those things if I don't get them. And so we need a Congress that's diverse, not just in race and gender and age, but also in backgrounds, income, occupation. I just think that's really important. And so I vowed, if I win, I'm not going to serve more than 5 terms. And like with our campaign, we're trying to lead by example. Like you can spend your money in not corrupt ways.
If you're elected, I think you'll be one of, if not the youngest member of Congress.
The youngest woman, if elected.
The youngest woman. But as I was formulating what I wanted to talk with you about in this episode, one of the things that I kept coming back to was how impermanent life is for younger people. I mean, I'm in my early 40s and I've moved, 4 times in 10 years. And you just had this sudden move to Chicago that you talked about. Do you think that the difficulty in laying down roots for young people these days discourages them from trying to run for Congress? And is there anything in your experience, maybe with the criticism that you've taken for not living within the boundaries of your district, that is kind of a lesson for, I guess, the wider political media or field in general?
Yeah, I mean, that is probably the biggest criticism I've gotten. And like, I always encourage voters, and like, you should be skeptical of anyone asking for your vote. So, like, I have no problem answering that. Once again, like, the reason I ran here is because I want to live here for the foreseeable future. It's a great neighborhood. I actually just found an apartment and just finished my application, which is very exciting. But yeah, I saw someone on Blue Sky the other day that was saying, like, someone was saying some really weird stuff about me, and they were like, do you want young people to run or not? Because what young people do is they move around a lot. And like right now, Illinois, like for trans people, for instance, this is the end of the Rainbow Railroad for them. This is where they come to be safe. Immigrant rights, climate change, reproductive rights. I think it's like 1 in 4 abortions in the Midwest is conducted in the state of Illinois. And so I hope, and we had someone come to the campaign office yesterday who just moved here 2 days ago from Kentucky, who wants to get involved in the campaign. And I hate when my computer does that, when it does like the automatic thumbs up button when I'm talking about something serious. But they, and it, like, I want them to get involved in politics too. And so it's like, if you want young people to run, you have to understand that like the income for local and state offices in some states, it's like $24,000. So you have to get all this money to run in the first place. And usually that's not like someone starting with a big digital base like I do with which I built myself, of course, but like it's still a privilege to start with. And then you win and you're taking on a full-time job and it's $24,000. Like, that's just not feasible. Or if you're, in my case, you're taking a candidate salary for a federal election and you're making essentially like $5 an hour. Like, that's not feasible for a lot of people. I'm really lucky that like I have some money saved up. A lot of it went into moving to Chicago in the first place, but I have a partner that's willing to like kind of pick up the slack, and I'm dipping into my savings. A lot of people don't have that luxury. And then if you want people to run, young people to run especially, and you're doing all these purity tests of like, how long have you lived here? Have you been in this neighborhood? Where did you go to high school? Like, if those are your priorities, that's fine, but you're going to have a lot fewer young people running, because a lot of them, especially from redder areas that want to live in, safer ones, places that feel safer for them. Like, if I want to start a family, I'm not going to go see my parents back in Texas because I'd be worried about what would happen to me and my possible child. Then you need to accept that they're going to move around a lot. And that maybe this is where they want to set down roots, and we should be encouraging that, and also trying to meet people's material needs so they don't need to be itinerant. Why was that so difficult to say? But yeah, I mean, like, I haven't lived in the same place for more than 2 years since I was 16. And it's nice to find a place that I call home now. But young people, we have it's why a lot of people don't vote. Like, a lot of young people don't vote. First off, you're not giving them something to vote for. And it's like, if you have a shitty boss that won't let you take off time to vote on a Tuesday, and you don't have the money to sue, you don't have the money, you can't afford to get fired. Like, why would you take that risk?
This podcast, at the end of the day, is, yes, we go over a lot of politics, but it really is about social media and how we use it today, and how the media environment and the social media environment come together to influence society and things like that. And I know that you've had like a lot of weirdness from a lot of people on the right. There was an article in, forgive me, I forget the name. This is Chicago.
The Chicago Contrarian.
The Contrarian, yes. That was really weird. You did a fantastic video, which we'll link to in the show notes, in response to that. But like, were you prepared for the kind of pushback that you're getting, not only from conservatives, but also there were a lot of people who didn't know that you and Ben, for instance, Ben Collins, were in a relationship.
Very controversial. I know that we've been in a committed relationship for 2 years. And people are like, why didn't you post about it? And it's like, you literally, like, you're being so weird right now. You're wondering why I don't post. Like,
yeah.
He's been coming to camp. Anyways, sorry.
No,
These parasocial
I get
relationships
it because
people build, it's like 30 years ago, this would be something that like you would show up to a campaign event and meet someone's partner. But like, there are things in my life that, I don't broadcast because I know like people have harassed my parents, like people have harassed my brother. Like I want to keep people in my life safe. And it's also just, I've had people that are like, why didn't you answer my question? I've replied to you. And it's like, I get a lot of replies a day. They're only, there's a sense of entitlement in social media. And on the flip side, there's a sense of isolation that people really, especially since COVID, we've all been so distant, and you hear that word authenticity a lot. And I think especially like politicos want to manufacture it, and that's the exact opposite point. People want someone to talk to them like a person. And that's how I've tried to make all my content, how I would want someone to communicate to me. But yeah, like being a researcher and journalist that covers the far right is kind of a superpower when you're running for Congress, because you've already built this thick skin. Like I've had people post my Tinder profile, like I was posed by Elon Musk here in Chicago last October. And so I can't imagine what it's like to see all of this. And if my campaign manager, Sam, he would show me a reply and be like, this is awful. And I'd laugh. And he was like, what are you doing? But we're just kind of used to it, especially as like a Palestinian woman. Like I've seen some insane replies, but I've been seeing those my whole life. And so that honestly has been a pro because it's prepared me for the weird online backlash. And on the flip side, people in person, even when they come in hot, even when they come in kind of skeptical, or even like a little bit of aggressive, like face to face, people are much more normal. And by the end of every conversation I've had, we've usually agreed on a lot more than we disagree.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think you and I and Ben and I have been mutuals for a long time, and I didn't know that you were dating. But the second I heard about it, I was like, oh yeah, I instantly like get why you wouldn't broadcast it, because I'm single perpetually to a fault almost. But if I got into a relationship, I wouldn't be posting about it on social media. Are you kidding me? Like,
yeah, especially with
that's just putting a target on the back of somebody I care about.
And especially the weird amount that like I'm sexualized. It's like I've seen people post about my sex life a lot in the last few days, and it's like, you don't have to do that. But yeah, like there's a difference between hiding something and not like broadcasting every single moment of your life. And I think at a time where we have a lot of like microblogging forums and everything is so easy to find, they feel like the same thing when you're online a lot. And that's when I encourage people. A lot of the campaign, like people assume that the campaign's really online because I post and, I have this big platform, but really that's just a tool to get the message out, fundraise, sell their merch, hang out, post pictures of my cat. But like the campaign itself is pretty much all ground game because we really want to stress that in-person connection. Our campaign office, which is where I'm recording from, in our back room filled with various trash that we need to take out, is a community space that anyone can come to.
Yeah. You've run a really interesting campaign with the mutual aid stuff and just the ways you're trying to connect with the community. I wanted to ask if you've heard of somebody named Tiffany Bond, who ran a similar campaign in northern Maine a couple of cycles ago. She's actually a friend of mine. We met in person. And she said, I don't want campaign donations, which is not quite what you're doing. She'd be like, instead, I want you to... And she would share like GoFundMes for teachers in her district who needed supplies or other charities in her district. She's like, I'd rather you give money to them. And so when I heard your campaign strategy, I was like, oh, like this has been tried before. But how are you finding that strategy so far? Is it helping you connect with the community?
Yeah, so we're trying to kind of take that to like the next level in terms of like how we spend our campaign money. Because I'm trying to kind of show a model of like, you don't have to just do lip service. You don't just have to promise a bunch of shit and then not deliver. You could be helping people right now. And we waste so much money in politics. I mean, you guys know political reporters. Like, so much money gets wasted on the same consultants and ads that have no strategy on them. And it's just like, it's a mess. And so we have been really focused on trying to find fun and unique ways to make politics accessible. Like for our kickoff event, instead of paying $500 a plate, you had to bring a box of pads or tampons for Chicago's Period Collective, which meant that anyone could afford to come. And we got to, we collected over 5,600 tampons and pads for people who needed them. And like, we just stocked a whole food pantry in exchange for campaign yard signs last weekend, and did a beach cleanup. And these have been really helpful in the community. The thing that I've heard a lot is people are like, I feel so helpless. I just want to doom scroll. And now I have an outlet. And so I'm not only supporting your candidacy and I'm not only helping people, but I'm also feeling like I'm doing something. Like at the beach cleanup, our hands were full with like trash grabbers and a trash bag. And we all sat on the beach in like a big circle and talked about things we cared about. And yeah, that sounds all kumbaya and Pollyanna-ish, but like, it was genuinely helpful. And I've seen people that online that like posted things that were really skeptical, and they were like, this grifter, blah, blah, blah. And now that we're showing what we're about, they're like, okay, maybe she's not a grifter. Like, I'm not sure if I support her. And it's like, we're just trying to show. And like, once again, I encourage people to be skeptical. We have been burned so many times. But all I ask is, watch me.
I want to be cognizant of your time. Christine, I wanted to ask if you had any quick questions that Kat can ask.
I wanted to commiserate about GW student loan debt. That was about it. But I also went when I graduated in 2008. So I can only imagine just the issues that have grown for people who are younger. And I have a 3-year-old, and I worry about her having drills in pre-K next year.
Yeah, it's awful. And we want, or Republicans want us to all be baby machines, and they don't want to support the actual, making of babies and raising of babies. I know I have so many friends that want to start a family, but they just can't afford to, because it's thousands of dollars just to deliver it. And then after that, you got pre-K, so maybe you have to quit your job because that's cheaper than having 2 incomes. Everything is so expensive, and it's just for corporate profit. That's it. And it's really unfair. And so we need to be providing that support. And there's so many parents I've talked to that are just terrified about what education is going to look like for their kids now. We had someone come to our office hours with their kid, and he was a really cool little guy. And I could just see the fear in their parents' eyes. I do appreciate, if you're listening to this and you live in the district and you have a baby, I love when people bring babies to the campaign office and I get to hold a baby, because it's it's genuinely restorative. Holding a baby, holding a puppy, holding a kitten. Yeah.
So how can our listeners find you? First of all, find you online, and how can they support your campaign?
Thank you for asking. You can go to catforillinois.com. Donations are really helpful because campaigns need money to run. And especially now that we have opponents in this race, we have to, we're really hitting the ground running. And so if you have money to spare, our average donation is about $31. It really makes a difference. We're taking 0 corporate cash. We also just launched merch today. So we are starting with some shirts with our logos, and then also some that say, "What if we didn't suck?" in a thank you grocery bag font. And it looks really sick. And there's also a tote bag. So get some of those. If we sell out of these, we got some really unhinged merch to debut after that. So if you want to see that, you got to buy now. And then also we have a volunteer Discord server. We need remote and local volunteers. And if you just go to the volunteer page on our website, you can join there.
Well, thank you, Kat Abughazaleh, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
The sponsor for this episode is once again Nora Reed Designs, an artisan-run business run by Nora Reed and their husband. I've known Nora for years on Twitter and now Blue Sky, and they also listen to the show.
Hi, Nora. Nora's jewelry is handmade fused glass jewelry made in a kiln, which produces colorful designs in friendly and round shapes. It's so gorgeous. They have an extensive Pride jewelry collection sold year round, not just in June, although we are in June now.
Yeah, they just released a new selection of items for Pride, and you should check that out right now. at nora.jewelry. But I wanted to direct your attention specifically at their bolo ties, which Nora says always gives them gender euphoria, and they make for fantastic Father's Day gifts. Bolo ties are like kind of in my opinion. They give like that Southwest vibe. We don't get a lot of that up here in New England, but anytime I see it, it like stops me in my tracks. So I'm like, oh, this is a person who like has some taste. All of the jewelry comes in a variety of lengths for pendants so that you can get jewelry that fits anybody. Even mine, like all of my necklaces that I have at home are like chokers on me because I have a larger neck.
Yeah, and everybody has a different body, and Nora's jewelry will fit all of your bodies.
Yes.
Everything comes also in these beautiful little paper boxes that are extremely giftable. Pride presents, Father's Day presents, or just a present to yourself.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And here's my favorite part. Use coupon code DADDY, which I think is the greatest coupon code of all time.
Truly.
Coupon code DADDY, and it gets you 10% off all orders through the end of June.
That is DADDY, Daddy. Find them at nora.jewelry.
Oh, Christine.
Yes, Kate.
It's that time again.
For out of context cancellations.
You know it. You know it. It's my favorite segment. Of course, all of these are listener contributed through our Discord. And if you would like to submit your own out of context cancellations, you can do so by joining the Discord, which is now accessible to anybody over the $3 a month Patreon tier. First, we have an old fave of ours. We did an episode on him not too long ago. Gavin Newsom. We are canceling Gavin Newsom.
It says again and yes. I guess I could ask what he's done again, but that would be giving context. And I really don't need to know what he's done again.
I mean, what hasn't he done? He stepped in to mess with the state's high school trans sports participation rules. He also proposed I think it was a work requirement on the state's Medicaid recipients or something. Like, it's clear that he's positioning himself for some sort of Bill Clinton style centrist run for the White House. I hope he falls on his face. I can't stand the guy.
Wow, how well did that go for us? Yeah.
The next one, and I've experienced this personally, cancel union busting.
In this economy?
In this economy? Yeah.
Yeah, I too have. I experienced union busting from afar because I smelled it coming.
Why do I get the feeling we're both talking about the same thing?
I can't imagine why.
Anyway, moving on.
We're
going to cancel understaffing your business.
Oh, well, that could apply to what we were just talking about, too.
Next, we're canceling those weird assholes who just live to comment wrong gender on anything a trans person posts.
Oh, lovely. It's like a TK, like in journalism. Go fuck yourselves.
The journalists who listen to us know exactly what we're talking about, and literally no one else does.
I will give context for TK, which is basically a placeholder that journalists use. It's shorthand.
I don't think those two letters appear together anywhere else in the English language. So if you have TK together, then you could go back and search for it. It won't bring up any other like false positives. Yeah,
well, it also just in this context seems like so uncreative and just so ugh.
Yeah. We're going to cancel Dr. Oz for investigating children's hospitals that do gender affirming care.
I would like to investigate Dr. Oz for so many things.
Thanks, Oprah.
Oh, man. Has Michael Hobbs done the What Oprah Has Given Us Over the Years episode?
No, but he should. Actually, we should have him on the show to talk about that.
Okay, let's set that up because seriously, let's think about what she's given us.
We're doing the Cancel Oprah show eventually.
I guess so. I mean, I still love her, and also
you get a cancel, and you get a cancel,
and everyone gets a cancel. She gave us Dr. Phil too.
I know.
It's not good.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Just batting 1,000 out here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and all the Weight Watchers stuff. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we Michael Hobbs, if you're listening.
we're putting up the cancel Gunkle signal.
That signal in the sky.
Next, we're canceling puberty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing great about that.
I only had to live it once. I can't imagine having to live it twice as a
2
trans
of them.
person. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my older daughter also has been going through it. So, yeah.
Kudos to anyone who has to do it once or twice. Like, just, yeah.
Next, we're canceling neighbors with drones.
What the fuck?
This feels like something Russia would say. Did you see that?
No. What have our neighbors to the...
No, there were a bunch of Ukrainian like special ops that snuck into Russia with drones, and they like destroyed a strategic bombing base like hundreds of miles away from the Ukrainian border, and everybody escaped. Yeah, so I like that one. That one made me laugh.
Yeah, Russia really winning that war.
Putin out here, cancel neighbors with drones.
Vlad, is that you? Is that you?
Canceled for that.
Is Vladimir on the Discord?
We do have 2 listeners from Russia that tune in, I think.
Well, obviously one is Vladimir
So,
Putin.
yeah.
Just like Donald Trump tweeted or tweeted or whatever.
It's just like an FSB office just devoted to listening to Cancel Me Daddy. Next, we're canceling bigots at Pride.
Yeah, stay the fuck home.
They always show up there with their little signs and everybody ignores them. And it's like, really? You don't have any other sources of getting attention?
I think at the Fly Trap, we've been doing a good job about highlighting, or will be doing a good job because it just turned to June, highlighting queer joy this month. And this is, as much as everything is shit, Pride is for celebration. Like,
yeah.
Although I know Pride started with a riot, but like, let's also... We're still here.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least for now.
I'm gonna here and partying this month.
Next month is Gay Wrath Month, so get ready.
Oh, does that come afterwards?
Yeah.
Is that like
Wrath comes after Pride? Always. Yes.
Great. That's July for us.
And lastly, we're canceling Seattle PD and anti-trans protesters.
Yeah, that sounds like a combination.
I'm wondering, I think police might be the most canceled thing in the history of this show.
Oh, they have a knack for canceling themselves.
We should go through all the old out of context cancellations and like make a chart, I think. Cancel Me Daddy is a Flytrap Media production, and today's show was made by me, Caitlin Burns, my incredible co-host Christine Grimaldi, and our amazing editor, Maria Paleologos.
Dee Peterschmidt made our theme song, and Romy Tarico designed our graphics. Ads by Multitude Productions.
Our show is made possible by the incredible cancelers supporting our work, especially the members of our Canceller Hall of Fame, with the great power to cancel all of their enemies. Meg.
We appreciate your support.
Happy canceling!